An abject and most disappointing performance by England that had the Goodison crowd for some time booing them, for some time slow hand clapping them.
Evening, we've got our lovely panel over there waiting to get to grips with that game, but before that we go to Goodison Park after the game where Brian Moore talked to Alf Ramsey.
At the performance, it was an untidy match. I thought we played extremely well for 25 minutes. Everything seemed to go wrong after the penalty was given against us. I think they've got a right to be disappointed. After all, it was an international match. It wasn't a particularly good one. And as I've said previously, or just now, our performance did deteriorate considerably after the penalty, and we were unable to regain our touch, understanding, confidence, everything.
Why do you think it went wrong after the penalty?
I don't know. I think they were terribly disappointed. I think the players were convinced that it was no penalty, and if it was a penalty, it was a very harsh decision.
From your seat in the stand, would you agree with them?
Well, it's not for me to agree or disagree with the referee. It was a penalty against the England side. I think probably this is something we not necessarily have to live with. It's something that we must be able to overcome. Disappointments come at any stage or at any time during a match, and it is important that these are international players and they're able to overcome this.
Along with those sentiments too, but I'm not at all sure the panel are going to go along with what the England team thought about that penalty kick. They've got other ideas, I know, but let's have a look at it now and see what we thought, because I think that brings up other issues that are relevant in many more matches than this international match. You can see now there, as the ball comes into the penalty area, Sammy Morgan going for it, and the push of Peter Storey. Now, the first question I'm going to put to the panel in a moment, we're going to see, first of all, David Clements take one of the best penalties under pressure I've seen taken for a long while. Not an easy moment. He's got loads of power in that left foot, and he keeps it low and hard, and no goalkeeper in the world could save that particular penalty kick. But the issue that came out of that, Malcolm Allison, first of all, was it a penalty?
Well, it's a penalty because anywhere else on the park, you know, the referee would have given a free kick. And this is the thing that happens very, very often in football. You see obstruction, you see people push, you see people pull, you see people tripped in the penalty area. But because it's in the penalty area, they don't give a penalty. But anywhere else in the park, they would give it. And so there's no reason why that shouldn't have been a penalty.
Derek, was that a push?
Well, it looked like it, watching the film 2 or 3 times, Jim, it looked like a push on Sammy Morgan. Sammy Morgan's a very strong type front runner, and he definitely went down. I don't think that Sammy Morgan has really got the intellect upstairs really to con or play up into the referee.
Well, it was a situation where he could have played the ball, wasn't it? He could have definitely played the ball.
It was definitely a penalty. Peter Storey made no attempt to play the ball, but at the same time, for Alf to make the excuse that England didn't play all that well because of that penalty kick's ridiculous.
No, he didn't, but he said international players should overcome that kind of setback. That's what he said.
He said they should, but at the same time he's still making the excuse that they didn't play all that well.
No, he said it knocked them off their stride, but an international team should overcome that kind of setback. Was that right, Jackie?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They should overcome it. But, you know...
What about this penalty?
Peter Storey looked the most surprised man in the world when the penalty was given. Because Peter Storey must do that almost every game he plays. I think most fullbacks do.
Well, there was a situation...
But they let him away with it. Alan Ball, for instance, at the other end, was blatantly pushed in the back when he was ready to head a ball.
How many times in the course of a season do you push a forward off the ball in a situation something like that in the penalty area and get away with it?
Happens once every time.
I don't do it at all. I don't do it at all.
I know you don't. I know you
don't. Be honest. How many times do you push a player like that?
Let's put it the other way. How many times do people push, for instance, over the years I've played, push me in the box, and then I get penalised for them pushing?
Yeah. But nearly always the referees...
Because referees basically are cowards in this situation, and they just will not give what the real decision calls for, which in most cases is a penalty kick.
But this referee did give that decision.
Yeah, but he didn't give the one when Bally was pushed at the other end.
Yes, but I think we're only talking about this individual incident here. I do believe, really, that it was a foul. Peter Storey, Sammy Morgan had an opportunity, if the ball had been played off to him, took it round and maybe knocked him in the back end. I thought, really, on what I watched there, it was definitely a penalty.
You keep going on about the penalty, but I don't think that's the excuse for England playing.
It isn't an excuse, Paddy. The reason I'm keeping on about it is a simple one, and I want to ask Malcolm this. The issue that defenders, the referee in circumstances like this, always tends to take the side of the defender, because if he doesn't, it's a penalty. Now, is it a good thing for football, if we want to see skill and attacking play, that the referee takes the side of the defender? Isn't it better the referee does what this one did today?
Yes, much better for the game. I mean, the more goals we see, the more situations created in the penalty box. I mean, great players want the ball played into them in the penalty box. You know, and people foul them and obstruct them in the penalty box, you know, then they're entitled to an indirect free kick or a penalty. And the more we get of this, you know, the more excitement it brings to the game. I mean, this is what the competition, the game's all about, playing in the penalty box. And this was a good ball, and Morgan made a good run for it, you know, and Story knew he was struggling, and he obstructed the guy, or he pushed him in the back, and it was a penalty.
Plus the fact really is that...
I mean, how many times you've been fouled this time, Derek, in the back, you know?
Well, what you lose on the swing, sometimes you get on the roundabout.
Yeah, but you can't possibly game because you're in the opposing penalty box.
You evaded the issue straight away as well, Malcolm, because you said the referee should give either a penalty or an indirect free kick inside the box. If it's a foul, it's a penalty.
Well, I'm talking about obstruction, or I mean, so often in the penalty box of obstruction, you know, they don't give it because it's a free kick in the penalty box. Anywhere else in the park, they give it.
Yeah. But let's give credit to the referee there. I mean, the referee is the boss out there, and he thought, in his opinion, it was a penalty kick. But one thing that you never saw any England players actually run to the referee and challenge the decision, which is a very important factor in the issue.
All right, I think we're going to say full marks to referee Clive Thomas for a brave and courageous decision. But now, what about Martin Chivers? 2 goals today, one of his best performances, Mark?
Yeah, well, he never plays well against Alan Hunter. Alan Hunter is a very good centre-half and gives him, you know, a very hard time. But today, Martin was really on the ball.
Here's the first goal. The chip coming up.
This was a great goal. Right in the near post, you know, he come and he beat everybody to the ball.
Look at it again from behind now. I mean, it was a great goal. He ran well, but of course, we must say that Pat Jennings, and this is football, one moment Footballer of the Year, the next moment, there he is in an international, letting the ball slip through his hands as this one goes through. I think that's something that we all know in football, that you can be on top of the world. Yeah,
this is a shot we never saw, Jim, before, you know, and it looks a bad goal there. Yeah. It looks a bad goal, and you know, Pat looked like he could have caught it or could have got his hands to it, knocked it out.
Second one coming up now, beautifully taken.
Yeah, that's
beautiful goal.
That's a great ball. That's a great ball.
Shannon did the early fighting.
Yeah. This is where his strength and composure tells here. He beats Jennings on the floor. Jennings maybe should have stood up and stayed there. You know, he just takes his time, puts him in the back of the net. If Jennings had stayed, maybe Terry Neal would have caused him some bother, you know. But it was a good goal. Great goal.
Other England performances, Derek?
Well, I'd just like to have a brief word on Martin Chivers. I've always said that Martin Chivers, he's got the equipment to be probably the best front runner, I would say, in Europe. If he had a little bit more aggression, he showed it today, and I thought that was one of his most convincing performances. And watching the match this afternoon, I was with a Tottenham supporter, and he said he's watched all Tottenham's matches this season. That was undoubtedly his best performance of the season, so he's held it for a big one.
Paddy, a lot of people say about Martin Chivers that he doesn't really fulfil his potential, and that maybe he's a lazy player, he's got lots of talent, but he doesn't do this. Do you think maybe he saw the danger signal today and thought, I've got to really go, or Self will have me out?
I think you always find with big fellas that they never use the ability that God's given them. They're always afraid to use their weight at their height, and that's the only thing that's ever been wrong with Martin Chivers. He did everything else except that. He's never used his weight at his height.
I think he responds to the atmosphere, Martin Chivers. Yeah. You know, I mean, when I've seen him, if the crowd start chanting Chivers and he starts going, oh, he scores a goal, and then he really buzzes, you know. Of course. And Jack will tell you now that he's a very difficult guy to play against.
He came into the game late, at a time when the rest of the England players weren't doing it. You know, the second half of the game, I thought Martin Chivers was magic. He was getting it on balls, he was knocking them off, he was making runs. And I thought him with the other lad, Shannon. You know, Shannon worked well with Chivers today because Shannon was always making these positive runs through and he was getting balls played in front of him. They didn't come off for Mike Shannon today, but, you know, the sort of runs he makes, we've talked about earlier, and these are going to pay off for England. The strong runner through like this with the acceleration he's got is going to be good.
I think that the three of them don't really work together. I think that John Richards and Chivers and Shannon don't really work together. Yeah.
Was Richards a bit unlucky today, would you say, in the role that he was asked to play?
I don't think it suits him at all. I don't
know if he was asked to play that role, Malcolm. I think with Martin Chivers and Mick Channon having played in the England side before, their character might have got above him and he just sort of drifted back.
Let's look at one moment when I thought Richards did very well. He was playing back in a position that he doesn't normally take up for Wolves, probably trying to find space. But here he might have taken a man on, but he opens up this play quite well, a constructive move there, which led to one of the most exciting moves of the match. A lovely ball back from Colin Bell there. Ball, he plays it on. Chivers takes it down, and that was a moment when Pat Jennings really did.
But that's a negative thing from Richards. You know, Richards is a fellow who strikes at the defence and runs through the defence and really causes them problems, turning quick in the box. But he was never able to get in the box, you know. I mean, Chivers is in there and Shannon was in there, and he was having to play in a situation which was very foreign to him today, and it doesn't suit him at all.
And plus the fact is that it's must stress really that making your debut really and playing out of position, I've never seen John Richards actually floating about as much as he did this afternoon, and also that John Richards really as a front man, as a target man, really should be hit all the time and be fed with a lot of things, and he didn't really actually play in his natural role today, and I only hope really that he's given consideration for another game, because he shouldn't be judged on this afternoon.
All right, let's leave England for a moment and go to Ireland, Northern Ireland. The brave performance, unlucky to get nothing out of it. Jackie Charlton, the players that impressed you?
Well, Pat Jennings didn't today. I thought Pat dropped more balls today than I've ever seen him. But I like the young lad to play up front.
We've got a couple of lads
Anderson.
Here. Anderson, yeah, Trevor Anderson did exceptionally well.
To say I don't think he's a regular with Manchester United, is he?
He's not, no.
That's Martin O'Neill there with a fierce shot. That combination were the two that stood out to me, Trevor Anderson and Martin O'Neill. We pick up just some flashes of them now. There's Hamilton on the ball, and we see here how Anderson beats Bobby Moore beautifully and puts a beautiful hard and low. That's a dangerous ball going right across the target area there, really inviting being put in the net. And finally, from this kick, again, just near the end of the game, as Tommy Jackson shoots. And I thought O'Neill here showed real class. He comes back with the ball, spots his target, which is Anderson. Anderson gets it down, he beats one man, but of all people again, it's Bobby Moore who reads it, comes from nowhere and stops that chance. A good performance, Jackie, from those two players?
A good performance from them too, yeah. I thought the lad wouldn't have got the ball in the last instance. You know, it was run away on his wrong foot, and I think Bobby Moore had read him well. But O'Neill, I thought, played great as well. You know, he caused a lot of trouble, especially balls going up to the centre-half.
Sammy Morgan?
No, England centre-half.
McFarlane.
I lost the name for a minute.
Yeah.
But he put him under a lot of pressure. He never allowed him to settle on the ball in the air.
He don't know his England centre-half since he left.
The last three international matches that Ireland's played, and Martin O'Neill has been the most talented and most
What about
outstanding
David
player.
Clements for his energy for Ireland today throughout that match?
Well, Jim, seeing as you signed him, he did well. No, he worked hard,
Little Tommy Jackson worked extremely hard in midfield as well. He competed awful well with Ireland ball.
And I thought that David Craig at left fullback had another very good game. He was outstanding on the game on Tuesday, and David Clements has been a very underrated player for years and years, Jim.
But hold on a
minute. There was another match played today.
Of course there was.
Scotland were playing too today, and the score of that match, in case you haven't heard, Scotland 2, Wales 0. There it is, and George Graham, obviously benefiting from Paddy Creran's coaching, got the 2 goals for Scotland today. Paddy, now today you and Derek were going on about Willie Orman. You had an argument. One of you thought that, well, you thought that Willie Orman shouldn't have broken up the team, and Derek thought that he was entitled to pick what team he wanted. Now, what do you say about the result? You haven't seen the match.
Of course the result's a good result. The best, I mean, we're not here to sort of stop Scotland getting to the World Cup finals. We want him to get there, and as many players as he can get, the better. But at the same time, the nucleus...
Don't be a politician,
The
Paddy,
nucleus of the players that was there would have beat Wales anyway.
But don't evade the question, Paddy. You criticised Willie Orman for his team selection this morning. You and Tommy Docherty.
No.
Now, you did at lunchtime, and
No,
that's
I
it.
didn't criticise.
He's got to, because he works for Tommy Docherty. What are you on about?
That's the fact. Here we have
Keep him at it.
Willie Orman actually picked a team this morning that was criticised in this morning's paper by Manchester United manager, who had got no right to criticise Willie Orman, because Willie Orman, I haven't read about criticising the poor form of Manchester United.
No,
I am not at all.
All the doc said about Willie Orman was that he didn't think Willie Orman should have broke up the nucleus of a team that was there for 15 months that had practically got them to the World Cup.
Well, as you realise, ladies and gentlemen, that argument, if you'll be quiet, is going to go on all night.
I think Scotland should have won today.
In marvellous form. I'm going to have to listen to it. You're not. But just let me remind you of Scotland versus Ireland next Wednesday at 10:30 on ITV, and then the big one on Saturday, live in World of Sport from Wembley, England versus Scotland, the climax to the whole tournament. We'll see you then.